Welcome. I'm Nick with Local Spicery, and I wish Chef AJ were here. I'm recording this demonstration because we had a failure of our internet, and as you can see, I'm going to be presenting from home, not from my normal demonstration kitchen at the Spicery in Marysville. When I come up with recipes for these demonstrations, I kind of have three main criteria. One is I want to introduce you to a spice blend that maybe you're not familiar with, something that's a little bit different, to push you out of your comfort zone. At the same time, I want the dish to be really, really simple to make. And lastly, it's got to be an adventure. One of the reasons that I got into this spice business was a love of travel, a love of learning, a love of culture. And through spices and spice blends, it allows us to connect to all three. So when I say that we're going to be doing a cooking demonstration, what I'm really saying is pack your bags, because we're going to go someplace exciting. And today, we're going to go to Turkey. The spice blend we're going to be talking about, it's a Baharat from Turkey. We call it Turkish Baharat. Baharat is a word that's common throughout the Middle East. It is an Arabic word, and it basically it's the plural of the word spice. So it's spices, or a blend of spices. Simple enough, but most people in the business know that culturally, there are different Baharats, and the Baharats represent the cuisine of a region or a sub-region, and they're all very different. In the case of Turkey, what sets the Turkish Baharats aside is, it has curry-like flavors, bright aromatic spices, but they also blend into it some herbs. And in this case, we blend some organic peppermint and some organic oregano. I think it's quite delicious. I first blended it because it is the traditional blend used for Turkish meatballs, which has always been one of my favorite dishes. And now that we're not eating meat, it's a good way to kind of bring me back to that time in my life. And as we said, when we're eating spice blends, it should take you somewhere. This is going to take me back on a trip through time, but hopefully it takes you across the oceans and the deserts to the land of Turkey. The Baharat itself is very, very simple, and it has a very kind of a mild, not the muscular kind of a flavor that we expect when we talk about a curry. It does have some sweet aromatic spices. Specifically, it has a fair amount of nutmeg, which is one of the things that makes it a more expensive spice. These are whole nutmegs, and it has some cinnamon. And in this case, for our blend, I chose to use the Ceylon cinnamon. I'm going to bring this right up for those of you that don't know the difference. Ceylon cinnamon is also called the true cinnamon. Sometimes it's called Mexican cinnamon. But when you look on the end of the Ceylon cinnamon, it kind of looks like a cigar, because it's a very, very long and very thin piece of bark that all curls up together. The bark itself is also, it's quite a bit softer. I mean, I could break it in two like this, but if it were acacia, you'd never be able to break it because it's so strong. Ceylon cinnamon also, true to the flavor tones of this blend, it's a much softer, more subtle flavor, known more for its floral tones than from the big, really powerful cinnamon flavor. We also put in the Baharat, those flavors that you almost can't get away from in the Middle East. We've got some coriander and some cumin. So then beyond those four ingredients, the only other thing that we put in this blend is the peppermint and the oregano, and that's our Turkish Baharat. You'll find the Turkish Baharat used throughout Turkey. In fact, the flavors would be very much at home in the plains of Georgia or the mountains of Iran. We're going to use it today to make a lentil dish with some mushrooms. Because it's going to be salt-free, We're going to try to jack up those mushrooms a little bit as flavor bombs. We'll cook them separate from the from the lentil dish, and we're going to put, in this case, we'll use some red wine vinegar to give them a little bit of punch and some sour flavor. The basic ingredients that I'll be adding to the lentils: onion, some fresh tomato, some little bit of garlic. And for the lentils, you can take your choice. Usually you would find, you know, like a green lentil or a French lentil or a gray lentil. This actually, because this is what I happen to have, this is a cup that's got it's mostly French lentils, and I just kind of topped it off with some green lentils. So without any further ado, let's get started. I'll fire this up. I'm going to put this onto a high heat, and we're going to begin with the onion. So these are all pre-chopped. This is just one single onion that I just coarsely chopped, and we're going to begin our saute just with the onion. We get a spatula. Okay, that'll heat up pretty fast because these reduction ranges are pretty quick. But while we're waiting for it, I'm going to blend a little bit of some bada bean bouillon that I'm going to use to deglaze this when we get to it. For those of you not familiar with the bada bean bouillon, I'll bring this up again. This is wow. It was an idea that came to us from Chef AJ, and I have found, after having blended it for her, I found it to be absolutely indispensable in my cooking. It is the ultimate shortcut. Anytime that you need a broth or a bouillon, you can make it very quickly. Or in this case, normally when you're deglazing, you would just be using water. By adding a little bit of the bouillon to it, you're infusing some rich umami flavors into your dish. So I'm just going to put a teaspoon into a cup. Now we'll put a little bit of hot water in here from the tap, maybe about a quarter of a cup of hot water. And that's plenty to deglaze me right there. Stir it up. And let's get this, so the onion's starting to cook. You can see the steam coming off of it. You know, basically we're trying to remove some of the moisture from the onions, and at the same time to cook them down to their soft and translucent and begin to caramelize, which is already happening pretty quickly, which is great. Now, in this dish, I wanted to add some color, and the other thing about lentil is, lentils can be boring. You know, they tend to have, you know, one flavor in the bowl and kind of, you know, one sense of granularity. So to make it a little bit more interesting, I've added to this recipe. Oh, this was an ingredient I didn't get out. Sorry, it's in the fridge. But it's one medium-sized carrot and 1/2 of a red bell pepper. And the recipe says 1/8-inch dice. It's probably a little bit bigger than an 1/8 inch, but you can see it's not a coarse dice at all. They're fairly small. I want them for color, and I want them to give you a little bit of something that you can bite into with your lentils. It makes the whole dish a little bit more interesting. This is cooking very nicely. You know, usually I cook at home. I cook with the gas range, but I've got to tell you, for sauteing onions, these induction burners are just phenomenal. I'll show you. You can just see how quickly that thing it's already caramelized, already beautifully translucent. I'm going to go ahead and dump these carrots and bell peppers in. Now the idea at this point with the carrots and bell peppers is you just kind of want to toss them in here long enough to get the carrot starting to soften a little bit. Mostly they're going to be cooked over the stove, simmering with the lentils in them. But this is just to get them started. And then since this is kind of the aromatic portion of it, this is a good time to add your spice cream. So we're going to do the Turkish Baharat. We're putting a tablespoon and a half of Turkish Baharat into this dish. I find that when you add your spices in with your onions and your saute, you get a stronger infusion of the flavor. You also kind of cook kind of toast the spices a little bit, and it tones them down a little bit. Right off the bat, I just got a huge hit of the peppermint and the nutmeg. It's just beautiful and it's delicious. Okay, so this is starting to get a little bit dry. We've cooked out a lot of the liquid, so I'm going to start deglazing. I'll put just a little bit of the bada bing in there. You can see it's slowly, the bada bing right away is evaporating. I'm going to turn the heat down to maybe 350. And let's just get this going. This dish just goes incredibly fast. It does, once you finish putting the lentils together, as we're doing right now, it will take 40 minutes to cook on the stove. But while you're doing that, you saute the onions, mushrooms, which we're going to do, and you're done. This is probably a 45-minute to an hour dish. You put the rest of the bada bing in, finish the deglazing. And it's really, really developing very nicely. I think we're ready to toss our tomatoes in. Again, the tomatoes, I've pre-chopped them. I'll show you. These are very coarsely chopped. I just want to cut them into big hunks so that we can start the sauce. Since this is going to be in a kind of the sauce part of the lentils. Biggish pieces are nice if they stick together. If you don't have fresh tomatoes, you could easily just use a can of chopped tomatoes instead of fresh tomatoes. In this case, I had the fresh tomatoes and they were a little bit soft. They were ready to be used. So let's put them on. All right. So this is kind of progressively adding the liquids. We're getting quite a bit more liquid coming in off the tomato. Just stir it up a little bit. And so we're going to add the lentils. And normally you would put 3 cups of water, but as I said, we're going to use we're going to add bada bing bouillon to the 3 cups of water. So I'm going to add it to my measuring cups. I've got 1 2-cup measuring cup, one 1-cup measuring cup. And I'm going to put a tablespoon of bada bing for every cup. There's 1, 2, and 3. And then I'm just going to top these up with some hot water from the tap. There's 1 cup. So these measuring cups, we just got them. We actually got them to use in our mill. We like them because they're made of silicone, so that you can squeeze them and get a little funnel, so that it's easier for us to add things into small jars. Been enjoying working with them so much that we're thinking about maybe carrying them in our store in Tiverton, see how they go. But I'm pretty hooked. I don't know if anyone's used these before, but they are. It's a terrific and relatively inexpensive item for your kitchen. And unlike the Pyrex clear glass measuring cups I've always used, these are unbreakable, which is nice. And they're heat proof, dishwasher proof, very easy to clean, very easy to use. All right, there's our 3 cups of bouillon, and we're going to add the lentils. Once this is all in here together, I'm going to turn the heat up, and we're going to bring this to a boil, and then we're going to set it aside and let it simmer. And I'll just put it over here on this stove, because I'm going to use this burner to saute the mushrooms, and then we'll be ready. So let's get this going. I'm going to pull the mushrooms out. We can talk about the mushrooms while this is heating up. So for the mushrooms, I'm using crimini. You can use the crimini, baby bell, the brown mushrooms. They've got a little bit sweeter, heartier flavor to them than the white ones. You can see I cut them into fairly thick pieces. These are not thinly chopped because, again, I want these to be not to melt into the dish, but to be distinct pieces that you'll get when you're eating. And while I'm doing this, I'm going to talk you through what we're going to be doing with the mushrooms. The mushrooms we're going to just saute, and then we're going to add some chopped fresh garlic, and then deglaze it with some red wine vinegar. When I first did this the other night, the second I put that red wine vinegar, my wife over on the couch perked right up and said, "Ooh, what are you cooking?" Because you'll see it's a fantastic aroma and a great flavor. It just infuses, the sweetness of the wine, the tanginess of the vinegar into these mushrooms rather quickly. The last part to this recipe that we'll do and we'll get to as we plate it, and it's a pretty important part relative to staying true to the tradition of Turkey and the Ottoman region. Let me just show you. We have a fairly good supply of herbs, which we're gonna pull the leaves off. We're gonna wash them and maybe chop them a little bit. But this goes over on the top. We're gonna put a lot of this. We have some cilantro, we have some peppermint, and we have some baby arugula. All of these have very strong flavors, but serving a meal with fresh herbs is very, very traditional in this region, and it's a big part of this dish. You might be surprised to see, it's not just a sprinkling on the top like you would do on a spaghetti sauce. It's actually going to be almost like a little salad on the side of the lentils. We are very close to boiling here. I'm going to move over and get my burner going on my gas stove here. Turn it down to low. Okay, good one now. Let me just get this. Now, I'm going to take this and move it over here, where it's going to go from from a full rolling boil to a simmer. I'm going to cover it, but I'm going to cover it loosely. And I see that in recipes, and sometimes I wonder, well, why do you cover it loosely? What's the point? And so you'll understand how, so you know how to kind of modulate. We're trying to allow this to cook for about 40-45 minutes until the lentils are fully cooked. But we don't want to lose all of the moisture in there. We kind of want to gauge it so that the moisture just it evaporates at a certain rate, so that as you watch it over 30, 40, 45 minutes, whatever it takes for the lentils to be done, you can kind of modulate how much steam you let come out of it, because if you did it the whole time with the lid off, you would just evaporate the water way too fast. Okay, so while we're waiting for that, I'm going to go ahead. I'll put turn this back on, turn the heat up high again. The only negative to the induction burner is I can't use my really favorite cookware. You can only use ones that have a magnetic base. This cookware, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's not what I like to cook with mostly. All right, so we're going to let that heat up just a little bit. And then we're going to go for it. Now, some people, will want to do this, in 2 or 3 different quantities. I kind of tend to like to do them all at once. It gets a little bit messy. It means you have to be in there turning it constantly. For me, it's easier to get it all the same consistency, and you're not pulling some out and letting it get cold. So with this, as high as it is, pretty soon we should start getting some liquid running out of these mushrooms. Because really what we're trying to do is we're just trying to get the liquid out of them. I gotta have a little bit of a secret to share. I'm not going to talk for 45 minutes while the lentils finish up here. I actually have another bowl of lentils on the back burner here that was basically completely done. So as soon as I get these mushrooms done, we'll be able to put this together, plate it, and move on. So maybe while I've got you, we at Local Spicery we do cooking demonstrations. We do great spices. We're also a small manufacturer, and we get a lot of questions from people about what's going on and are we really impacted by what people are talking about the failure of the global supply chain. And yes, it is surprising to me how much the movements of goods and from country to country, how it affects someone like us. I mean, you would think obviously the spices, but we saw that happening pretty early on, and we really increased our inventory of the spices that were getting hard to get. And for example, it's become nearly impossible to get anything out of India. So some things that we would normally source from India, like say cardamom, cardamom you're really only going to touch it coming out of Guatemala right now. But those are all things that you can react to. What we couldn't react to, and some of you may have read the note on our website, but relating to our jars. Our jars, which we import from Italy, they're actually made specifically for the cosmetic industry, which is part of the reason why they're so lovely. We love them. They're absolutely perfect for spices. But through the pandemic and more people staying at home, they weren't selling as many cosmetics, so the demand for our jars dropped really, really fast. And for us, we order 2 or 3 pallets at a time, which is a tiny amount compared to what they need to manufacture these. So they need to find other big manufacturers to offset us. Long story short, a process that would normally take a few months. We ordered our jars to complete the year back in April, and here we are in November, and we still don't have them. And the rosiest possibility would be probably mid-December we'll see jars, but this pandemic has turned even me into a pessimist, and I'm just not counting on it. So we've had to make some changes in our offering. As you see on our website, you'll see that for many of our base spices, we can't offer them in standard size jars. We're offering them in kind of a new thing we're calling a standard refill pouch, which is our regular large refill pouch, but we just fill it halfway and we fold it over. And really appreciate everybody bearing with us on this. For those of you that order frequently, I will say if once we do get our big order in, if you want a jar to put your standard refill pouch in, just reach out to us and we'll work with you. We can add it to your next order. But it's just remarkable how these big global changes can affect a tiny, tiny company like ours. Oh man, these are looking nice. They're looking nice and they're cooking quite evenly. You can see them. There's a lot of liquid coming out. They're not overheating. Usually I wait a little bit longer to put the garlic in, but I'm going to put it in anyway. This is pretty finely minced. It's 3 large cloves. I know a lot of people that say if the recipe says 3 large cloves, they'll be more like 10, and that's up to you. I find 3 large cloves gives it pretty good strong garlic flavor. So we're going to add those in now. And I'm going to just sprinkle some chili flakes on this, just to give them a little bit more zip. Now, they would normally use there are a couple of chilies that Turkey is quite famous for, the Marash and the Aleppo, which is actually from Syria, just across the border from Turkey, but it's very common in Turkish food. Another offshoot of the global supply chain and the civil war in Syria, but all the product that's coming out of that region right now is being sterilized with ethylene oxide, which we won't carry in our shop. So we can't get the Turkish chilies. I'm using the Calabrian chili now. This is an Italian chili. It's hotter, much hotter actually. So I'm just putting a little tiny bit than the Turkish chilies would be, but it has a similar flavor profile. It's very, very sweet, and similar to the Turkish chilies, the heat in the Calabrians comes on immediately and dissipates very quickly. So it's got a lot of similarities. Oh man, that is just smelling good. We're going to keep going because we're still getting some good liquid built off of this. Looking good. All right, so my key that we're getting less liquid is I can see the glazing starting to form on the bottom of the pan, and that's a good sign. That and the fact that the aromatics of the garlic are kicking in overtime right now. It's about time to have the red wine vinegar. We're just going to put 3 tablespoons in. I don't know if you can see in my pan, but it gets in there, it evaporates very quickly. I'm just going to scoot it along and use it to deglaze. And as this evaporates, once it's all gone, we're done. Probably another 30 seconds, and then we're going to get into the plate. Over. So what I like to do, I need to go a little bit longer. That's a new one. My GFI breaks a pop. I still need a few more seconds because I don't want liquid I want is like a little bit of a sticky mess left over from the vinegar, which is very close to what we're getting right now. Okay, that's it. Good enough. Okay. All right, now I'm going to okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the leaves off some of these greens. So there's some cilantro. Pull there's some more stems out here, so there's more green and less stem. Some stems okay. Yeah, that actually adds flavor to it and a little bit of a varied texture. Okay. I'm going to go with rather less of the peppermint. It's a little bit stronger flavor, so we don't want quite so much. That's enough of that. And then the rest in the review. Okay, I'm going to rinse this. Just try to press some of the water out in a paper towel. Okay, so I've got the lentils in the bowl. I'm going to put some mushrooms on the top of it. I like them to show. And then my little mixed blend of herbs, which is a very, very Middle Eastern thing to do, the little mixed blend of herbs. Voila. And let's bring this down. And there you have it. These are our Turkish mushrooms with our Turkish lentils with mushrooms. Hope you've enjoyed this. It's as you can see, it's a very easy dish. It comes together very, very quickly, and it's delicious. In fact, I'm gonna have some right here. Let's get some of the.